Welcome to the Char Chit Chat, a podcast exploring all things biochar related, coming to you from a small sheep and tree farm in the deep south of New Zealand. Thank you for joining me, Cornelia. It's great to have some time with you to chat, and I'd like to start off our biochar conversation by asking you, who is Cornelia Holten?
Hi, Dylan. Thanks for having me on. So, I grew up on a small dairy farm in Germany. It's right on the border to Austria. So, that next village is an Austrian village. We like that, the ruralness and being in the mountains, and so that whole region is where we kind of feel we belong. And on the memorial plaque on my grandparents' house is from like 1200. So my family goes back like 800 years of growing food. It's like over 30 generations on the same property.
Wow.
Yeah, but all of this only works if it's really small scale and it's very diverse. And a funny story that my dad told me when I was back there in like last year in May was that our ancestors, they grew all the food for the local fortress during medieval times. So that was around 1300. And they went through both world wars and growing food and having a garden. This just was very normal. It was, essential, really necessary to do. So when I was a child, I grew up on my grandparents' farm. My parents built a house just next door to the homestead. And, they had an income with dairy cows. So it was just 20 cows. That was the normal size.
Hmm.
And they had a paddock with potatoes where people just came and picked up their sacks each year. And the rest was, self-sufficiency. They had some pigs, chickens, ducks, and a big vegetable garden. And when I was a teenager, then it was the time that small dairying, it could not provide an income anymore. And then the choice was go big or go home. So with a very heavy heart, my grandparents sold the cows, which, yeah, was very emotional. But we've held on to the woodlot and the paddocks and, the cow shed. Everything is still in our family. And the paddocks are leased out.
Uh-huh.
And my dad still works the woodlots to take firewood out of it. And yeah, I always wanted to be a farmer and take on the family farm, but it just wasn't meant to be at the time. So my second choice was to become a teacher. But normal teachers' college and state education didn't suit me very well. And I always felt that something was very wrong by the way how we teach children. But then I found Montessori education and then it opened up a whole new world of like system science and discovery and ecological awareness. And yeah, and I always did the Montessori course over the weekend. And during the week, I did my studies, and my professors were really good and were on board with that. And they were okay that I did all my assignments through the Montessori lens, which was great because, it gave me perspective again and it gave me a drive. And I actually, even though I was studying more than full time, because on the weekends I did the Montessori classes, it didn't feel draining. I just felt so recharged coming back on a Monday and just, go get stuck into studying and yeah, and trying to apply Montessori. And now I find myself on beautiful Banks Peninsula and we're growing food for the family and we grow medicinal herbs. So I run KoruKai Herb Farm with my husband Kai, and we've got two employees as well. And I'm homeschooling one of my two children. And again, I find myself drawn to the alternatives, to, the weirdos of farming, if you say so. But it's always those alternatives that I think should be the norm. So, be it Montessori education or regen farming, I think it should be the normal thing, but it's always the minority where I feel I'm drawn to. And yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's where I'm now.
Okay, so did you qualify as a primary school teacher or a high school teacher?
I'm a primary school teacher,
Uh-huh.
and I worked in actually, I just finished my studies in Germany and Austria actually. And then I came over to New Zealand and didn't have any work experience. And then I worked 3 years at Nova Montessori School in New Brighton, which was absolutely fantastic. So the kids were between 9 and 12 years old. And yeah, it was just really fantastic.
And did you move to Banks Peninsula straight away, or were you in Christchurch City or near New Brighton in the beginning and then moved to Banks Peninsula later?
Yeah, we started off in Heathcote Valley, so we bought a little section there and built a house. And when, like in Germany, when you build a house, that's it. Like our friends were so surprised that 4 years later we decided to move.
Uh-huh.
It's yeah, in Germany, when you build a house, it's permanent. You stay there, even though you might not be happy, but that's it.
Okay.
And yeah, and so when we were in Christchurch, I worked at the school and then I did an organic horticulture certificate course because my plan was to take on the gardening sessions at the school for the kids. And yeah, and that got me on that discovery about soil science and growing food. And I just had such a big need to get my hands stuck in the soil. And then I got pregnant and we just started to convert all the garden in on the property, all the lawn into gardens on the property. And so we just thought, we don't need a lawn when we don't have a child and we don't need to kick balls around.
Hmm.
And once everything was converted and we tried to grow as much food as we can on that little, postage stamp section in Christchurch, then I was pregnant. So we were then looking at other ways, and I wanted my kids to grow up in the country like I did. And I
Mm.
was really drawn to, have a dairy cow again and grow my own food. And yeah. And then we moved like 4 years later to Banks Peninsula.
Okay, so what year was that you went to Banks Peninsula around about?
It was 2013. That was
2013.
when our first child was 6 months old.
Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah, really interesting story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Did you do the BHU course? Is that the one you're meaning?
It's very similar to that. So Hamish Kelland, he is a tutor at the BHU. He did the course, but it was run through Ag NZ at the time.
Okay.
It was fully funded. So yeah, it was really good.
So there's actually two options for people then to study organic horticulture in that area.
Yes, but the Ag NZ, they don't do that anymore. But yeah,
Okay.
BHU, but
Still go.
Hamish Kelland is a tutor there. And I'm actually also doing some of the tutoring there at the BHU at the moment.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've looked at your YouTube channel before and your website as well to see what you've been doing. Mainly because I was searching for information on biochar, and I think I found your nice little description on your website. And you do a lot of teaching still now. You do a lot of workshops, right?
Yes, I do. So it's great that I can still, put that master's degree in education to some good use. But most of all, I love learning. And
Mm.
whenever I learn something, I want to teach it. So it's for me hand in hand. I want to always set aside time for me to do research and learn, and then to teach it because I think then it goes really deep. And then I
Mm.
can go deeper into topics that I would normally not be able to because, you don't have the time when you're stuck with other things. But I can really set time aside for me to research and then I can teach it, which I really love doing.
Yeah, cool. All right. And so can you tell us what you remember about when biochar first came into your awareness?
I think it might have been mentioned in the organic horticulture course back in 2012 with Hamish.
Hmm.
But then we started a family. We moved to the lifestyle block, and it was a really clean canvas here, so nothing was set up. And then I also started my own business, and that was everything within 3 years. So biochar was just put aside.
Hmm.
And but then later on, when I did more research into biological agriculture, I came across the terra preta soils in the Amazons and
Mm.
that they use biochar for that. So then I just researched into biochar and how amazing it is for the soil. And we've got really heavy clay.
Yeah.
So we thought it's just another way to improve the soil. And I think the first we got the little biochar burner from Crafty Gatherer. So they have got it looks like a log of wood, like the size of a log of wood.
Hmm.
It's made with stainless steel, and you just open it up and you can fill it up with feedstock. And then you screw it shut, and there's just one vent on one side. So you can then just chuck it into your fireplace, and then everything that's inside of it turns into biochar. But yeah, that was a really good option for very small scale. But soon we just discovered it's just not enough. It's just a drop in the bucket. And
Yeah.
then I think a year or so later, in like I think it was January 2020, then we had friends at Birdsong Retreat Center in Wainui, and they invited Dennis Enright to teach about biochar. And he showed us the process in a Kontiki kiln.
Yes.
And yeah, and that got it all started. So we got really excited. We bought steel sheets from Steel and Tube in Christchurch to
Yeah.
make two biochar kilns. Yeah, and then we did it as an Easter project. I remember still doing that because we had Easter and the kids were at home and Kai had time off from work, and then we built the kiln. And then we had a fire, and I just remember we've got a photo where we're hiding the Easter eggs and the bonfires happening, and
Hmm.
we just really love bonfires. And now with the Kontiki kiln, we can, enjoy the bonfire, and we not just end up with a pile of ash, but we end up like with 30 kilos at least of biochar. And we also got one of those tripod grills from Mitre 10, and they fit over the kiln, and then we can like hang a beef stew in a cast iron pot, or you can use the grill to cook meat and vegetables on it. And the kids, we always make like sourdough damper, and they put that on wrap that on the sticks and cook it over the fire. And yeah, it just made so much sense. And then when we quench the fire and tip out the Kontiki kiln, we end up with so much biochar.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lovely thing in permaculture of where we try and get every element in the landscape to have triple function, and I think you're nailing it there. If you can cook on it, you enjoy it as a bonfire, and then you're getting the char out of it afterwards. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, that's three basic ones. There's probably more function there, but that's great.
Yeah, it does need a lot of effort when we do it. So we have to be organized because you need to put in wood as soon as that top layer turns a little bit white. So it's like that flame cap method. And we usually I take turns who, cuts some wood down and puts it on the fire, and the other one gets to sit down and chat with friends. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So you're actually building it up layer by layer as you're having your
Yeah.
bonfire. Have you tried where you fill up the whole kiln and then light it on top and let it burn down from the top
We
down?
we haven't tried that yet, but yeah, we just go bit by bit and fill it up
Okay.
from the base up. But yeah, so you just do the same thing. You fill it up and start from the top, and you just let it burn down.
Yeah, yeah, it's known in the biochar thing as TLUD, top lit up draft.
Yeah.
So that could work
So
for you
that,
if there's a time when you'd prefer
yeah,
not to be having to take care of that and keep adding wood, you could try that. Yeah.
yeah,
If
totally.
a stranger asks you what biochar is, what do you tell them?
Usually when I start talking about biochar, then most people say, "Oh, it's just like charcoal, right?"
Hmm.
But biochar and charcoal, they're not the same. They're quite similar, but the differences are quite important. So charcoal is mostly combusted organic material. However, it has still a significant percentage of those volatile organic compounds in it. And that makes charcoal great for use in a barbecue, or for smoking meats, because it burns even and long. But biochar, on the other hand, is completely turned to carbon. Well, almost. It's like almost 90% carbon.
Hmm.
And in biochar, all of those volatile organic compounds, they're combusted and they're gone. And they leave behind like a massive porous skeletal structure. It looks like a carbon sponge under the microscope with this like honeycomb structure.
Hmm.
Like I read that in 1 single gram of biochar, it contains the same surface area as two full-sized basketball courts. And that's just, a gram fits in a teaspoon, I guess.
Yeah.
So it just acts like a giant sponge, which soaks up water and nutrients, and it invites microbes in to take up residence. So compared to charcoal, biochar is not combustible anymore. And it's really intended to be used in the environment and not as a fuel. And yeah, it makes great carbon when you put it into the soil for the long term. It's really stable. But the really important thing for me is the difference to biochar and charcoal is that the feedstock is like sustainably sourced and locally sourced, and that it's something that would otherwise have gone to waste. So like we get most of our feedstock from neighboring farms or from pine slash from the local area. And yeah, but we ask them if we can go through their burn piles, and then we usually we take out the larger pieces for firewood, and smaller sticks and branches we turn into biochar. We got a small electric chainsaw for that, which does a fantastic job.
Hmm. And have you taught workshops on biochar yourself?
I have done one, I think it was last winter, and yeah, I hope to just do it regularly on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
It's great to do it in winter, and then we do it towards the like late afternoon, and then in the evening people just bring something to cook on the fire, and we'll just end with a social gathering.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's amazing because I when I first discovered it, I never thought it would be this easy. And that's what I love teaching it, because people see how incredibly easy it is.
Yeah, yeah, and you can make it part of some kind of routine, whether it's a daily routine when you're making your fire at home to heat your house, or like you say, as a social thing instead of just having a bonfire or a campfire, even you just add a little bit something different to it, and then you get the biochar resource coming out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and how do you guys use the biochar at your place?
So we use it, and so we feed it to our cattle and sheep, and they spread it on the paddock for us.
Hmm.
We give them like we make them a mineral mix, which is like it has seaweed powder, it has humates in it, also some molasses and crushed garlic and apple cider vinegar, some sea salt and lime, and we mix it through in some crushed barley. And then the biochar we stomp into small pieces, and we add that to it, and they really go for it. So it's easy to give to the dairy cow. So she always had it when she was getting milked,
Yeah.
and she just eats everything. So there's nothing left. Even bigger pieces, she just eats all of those.
Hmm.
And for our sheep, it was a bit more difficult because we always wanted them to take it, but the cows, because they're all in one paddock, the cows were usually first to get to it. And we had one ram that got friends with one of our calves. They were really inseparable mates.
Hmm.
And he thought, oh, why is my friend always running to this blue bucket, and just maybe have a look. And he sniffed and had a look and had a try. And so he got really hooked onto it. So whenever we got the buckets out, we made sure that the dairy cow is not there, because she's too bossy. She would just kick them all away. And yeah, and then we had them in a separate paddock with the calf and the ram, and so they went for the buckets. And we always give them, like, they have a mineral lick, a little salt lick. And in that salt lick that's in a little container with holes in it that the water can drain out, we just added handfuls of that mixture. And then we slowly got our sheep to like that. But it took years of effort for them to actually go for it. And now they're so needy of that stuff. So when we just call them and we put those two buckets down, they all run and charge for them.
Hmm.
So we have to make sure we spread it out over 4 or 5 buckets so that everybody gets something. And since we're doing that, and since the sheep actually eat it, we don't need to drench them anymore. Like our drench was usually apple cider vinegar with garlic, and we did that like 4 or 5, 6 times a year. And now we don't need to do that at all. We haven't done it in a long time because they just eat that. And we also add like the garlic and the vinegar in with that mix.
Okay, so they're probably getting it anyhow. Yeah, cool.
Yes. Yeah, cool. And the biochar is all gone. And yeah, so they scoff it down now. The chickens, we just throw it in for their feed. They eat it. It's usually gone within a short time. We also give them ash from the fire for their to have a dust bath.
Yeah.
And there's usually bits and pieces of charcoal in it, and they eat that as well. We also put in our composting toilet, and we put down a layer first into our, like it's a 20-liter buckets that we use. And we put maybe a fifth of the bucket we fill up with biochar.
Mhm.
And we just do the toilet and the wood chips in it. And then we use that to make compost. And we also add it into like compost when we build compost piles. And
Mhm.
I try to do about 10%, but usually it's a bit less because we just don't have enough feedstock to do this much because we produce a lot of compost every year. Like I build 2 cubic meter pile every month. And then it's usually hard for us to do 10% over that whole pile.
Mm.
Yeah, and we feed it to our worms. So I've read some research about if you add like 8% biochar to the worm food, the production of cocoons increases by 66%. And we've got like a small business selling composting worms. So it's really important for us that they continue to breed well and produce cocoons because we want to harvest, like we harvest between 2 and 4 kilos of worms every week from one of our farms. So biochar, we crush that up really fine for them. Yeah, so it helps for their health and for their reproductivity, and so they're more efficient and produce faster.
Cool. Wow. Very good. So you're not actually just using it straight in the soil when you make a new garden bed. You prefer to use it in compost or other ways so that you don't have to worry about inoculating and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we never use it raw because if you use it without activation, then you can really take away water and nutrients and microbes from your plants because
Mm.
it has got such a huge surface area. It snacks those up, so your plants actually take a few weeks and they can turn really yellow because it takes the nitrogen away. So we always like to inoculate it first and preload it with those, with water, with nutrients, and with the microbes before applying it to the soil. And it's the great thing is with the cattle and the sheep and the chickens, we don't inoculate it. So they do that through their gut. And then the biochar sits in their pile of manure, which is fabulous. We also give the cows some seeds, and so in the cow pits, we have like chicory and plantain growing. And that sits in in with the biochar and everything. And yeah, it's really amazing how the soil is improving just by doing that.
Yeah. Can I ask like a bit of the historical question? When you said you go back so many generations in Germany and they were growing their own food and milking their own cows and that, did they use char at all? Do you know?
I have no notes. I haven't noticed anything. No, I really don't know.
Okay.
But they made a lot of compost with the cow manure because the cows were in the shed when we had snow on the ground, and they had bedding, they had straw, and they had wood chips and pine shavings where they
Mm.
sat on. And then so all of that got turned into compost. So yeah, amazing stuff. And then all of that went out into the paddocks again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What, in your opinion, is needed in New Zealand to make biochar a household topic?
Well, maybe a podcast would be great. But you're doing that anyway. Um, I think around among region farmers, it already is a household topic around the kitchen table. There was an event called Underground Festival, so it promoted biochar and teaches people how easy it is to make it. And it's just talking to people and sharing the benefits, just gets them thinking. And whenever we want to raid one of our neighbors' burn piles, we just say, "Oh, we need some to make it to turn into biochar, and just let us know before you burn it." And so just we keep saying the same thing. So gets them thinking like, what are they doing, those hippies up the
Hmm.
road? But yeah, it would be good to if it gets more media attention. But yeah, we just share it with whoever we can, and never know if you reach open ears or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, it would really need media attention to get far and wide to go to every household. But yeah, I reckon among region farmers, because they are thinking about more things that they can do to improve fertility and regenerate their land. And they've got waste products. And yeah, so they're very, very open to charcoal and making biochar and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And do you think that any of your neighbors will take up the gauntlet and start making their own biochar? Or has that
No,
happened yet?
no, no, don't think so.
Okay.
And it's good because then you can still using those boon pies. But no, they don't. They it's funny how they keep their farms so super tidy. It always looks licked. Just there's
Yeah.
some poplar and something falls over, and they collect all those little sticks and put it into a pile. And then, when the fire burns lifted, they put lighted fire to it. Their paddocks and their woodlots are tidier than my living room. And it's just not how nature works.
No.
Yeah, we just need messiness because we just need, leaf falling. We need the fruit falling. We just need things messy, and that's what they don't see in modern agriculture. It's just they always, people drive past, so they want to have it tidy, or like vineyards, they keep them really tidy, and then you just spray and it looks good, and the fence lines are sprayed, but it just doesn't make sense. So it takes a lot more for them to really change and switch. And I think our climate is just too easy. They need more droughts or more flooding to get them to think about different things. Like in countries like Australia, they just have to. There's no way they can continue what they're doing. But here we've got everything is green, we've got so much rain, and yeah, the fertility is there. So the first they need to run out of all of this before they really start thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like you do have a really good growing climate where you are? Because when I was deciding where we should settle, I thought that the east coast of the South Island was going to get a bit drier over time, and that it still even now has dry times. Do you find that's not an issue yet?
It does get really dry in summer.
Yeah.
February is our driest month. Wasn't this year. This year we had a really wet summer. But I find when we are in the middle of a very big drought, that our paddocks are still green because we're planting so many trees in tree rows, and we leave more cover on the ground. So our neighbors are already really brown and dry, and we are green. And when it does rain, I notice that a lot less water is draining away from our farm. It's soaking into the ground.
Hmm.
And and then the streets in the neighbor's place, they are already going brown. So they've got a lot of runoff. And when they do get a rain event, it just, drains off and it doesn't even soak into the ground. So yes, we do get dry, but I think we can do a lot to not be dry within 2 weeks from the last rain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that your neighbors will see your place and then think a bit more openly about, hey, maybe we could be doing some of the stuff like those guys, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Some do, and they come around and we do open days and farm tours, and some do, and some see that, but a lot of them just don't.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know about Biochar Network New Zealand and what do you know about them?
Yes, like Dennis was one of the founding chia members, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really good to get awareness to people about biochar, and to come up with solutions for a range of environmental concerns. And yeah, but I don't know a hell of a lot about it. Are you part of it? Hey.
Yeah, I'm a member and I also work part-time for them, doing
Yeah,
stuff to do with membership mostly and the website as well. But yeah, I'm
yeah, it's
interested in asking people just so that it's some feedback for me on what the organization can be doing better.
yeah. I think among biochar people it is known, but people that don't know about when you want to research about biochar, you come across it straight away.
Mm,
But if you're not familiar with biochar and then you just don't. And yeah, I did a webinar with Dennis Enright, I think like 5 years ago.
yes.
And in an instant I got contacted by someone from the network, I think, if I want to be member. But I just like to promote biochar and do my thing and I don't know. Yeah.
Cool.
It's just me. But yeah, and I think it's awesome that, awareness gets more and that they show up to events for farmers and yeah, just spreading that and get funding.
Yeah.
My husband, when we got into biochar, we actually looked for biochar to buy and there was nothing available just 5 or 6 years ago. And now there is a whole range of biochar available, which is great. And it's available on both islands and it's readily available for you to get it to your farm. So if you can't make it yourself, there's no excuse to not have biochar and use it.
Yes, I agree 100%. Cornelia, I know that you are an entrepreneur of sorts. You have your own business. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Well, after I did the organic horticulture training, and we moved to the farm, and my child was, just about to be weaned. And I know that as a breastfeeding mother, I pass on so much immunity to my child. So
Mm,
I wanted to learn how to use herbs that, I can give if, we've got a fever happening or that was upset tummy or just being generally sick. So I did an apprenticeship in herbal medicine in 2013 and 14. And that was at my biggest Phyto Farm. And then the last module was for me to, create a business model and come up with a name and do your first product. So my child, it was Nicholas, he was at the time 1.5 years. And being still in nappies, we were dealing with nappy rash. So the first product I made as part of that ending session for the apprenticeship was a baby bottom balm. And we gave it the name KoruKai Natural Herbal Products at this first stage. And I just kept having it, on the side and just like, oh yeah, I was pregnant when I finished the course. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do too much about it. And then before I gave birth to our second child, I made a range of products for that help with giving birth. And one was a nipple balm and one was a postnatal healing cream. And and then my midwife was really excited about that. So I made her little sample plot pots and she passed it on to her clients and they really loved it. And then I got just more inquiries about it. And I was so amazed with the stuff that we produced from the herbs straight out of the garden that they were so potent. And yeah, and then the business was born before I even gave birth to our second child, which was
mhm,
not the best timing. In hindsight, I would not do that again,
mhm.
but it was how it was. And yeah, and then we just started to come up with more products, and I did a range of products before I gave birth, just for our household use and things that we needed. And yeah, and then some of them we just started to produce bigger batches and sold it among people that were interested. And Kai is a software developer,
Ah,
and so he got a website up and running, and yeah, and that's how it all started. It was yeah quite crazy at the start, especially having another child and yeah, and still having the farm and I was driven to be self-sufficient, so I spent a lot of time in the garden. And yeah, and now 10 years forward, we still have the baby bottom balm on the website. It's still a very popular product. And
Mhm.
we've just increased the range to, we've got about like 250 products that we do. And we
Wow.
just recently we've released one product which is for people that have worm farms at home. It's called Worms Up, and it
Mhm.
contains lime and seaweed and biochar and some humates. And yeah, and I just love the creativity of the business that I can think about new products I want to do and then coming up with new recipes and researching and yeah, and then the education side of things started. I think when Julia, our second child, was about 2 years old. So they got used to having people around and having to be quiet and behaving. And when
Mhm.
they were little, people always pointed out how amazingly behaved the kids were. And now it's normal because they're older, like 12 and 10, and it's yeah, very normal that they just be part of it and yeah. But yeah,
Cool.
that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing range. My partner makes a few bombs and things, but wow, 250 different products. It's quite
Yeah,
incredible.
it's about a hundred that I have to craft,
Yeah.
and the other 150 are things that we just bag up that our staff can do, like the tea blends, and we sell straight herbs like lemon balm and hyssop, and some of the roots like elecampane root and marshmallow root, and then these just need to be processed and bagged up, and then I
Mhm.
don't have much to do with those anymore.
Where do you get all your different herb plants from? What's your main source?
When I did the apprenticeship, that was in Little River, so I got a lot from Valmai Beaker as a good plant stock to get started. And then I imported some seeds of things I couldn't get here from America and Canada.
Uh-huh.
And some of it didn't go through the border, which is okay.
Yeah.
But the stuff that did come through, I could just grow them, and most of the medicinal herbs are perennials. So
Yeah.
we once we've sowed them from seed and we've got them in the garden, we just harvest them like 2 or 3 times over the season. They go dormant in winter and they just grow back in spring and start all over again. So we just have to care for them and divide them if they need dividing, and we just add compost and vermicast with has lots of biochar in it to increase the organic matter in the soil. And a lot of the herbs, they've been in the same bed for 5, 6 years,
Okay, wow.
and we just after harvesting we just pile on compost. In winter they all get a good layer of compost and mulch, and in spring they just sprout back again. They are too easy.
Hmm. And do any of your products have biochar in them?
Yes, the worm sub that I just mentioned before
Mhm.
has biochar in it that people can buy in 500 grams in kilo bags. And I've got one, but we don't produce the biochar. It has activated charcoal in it, and that's called a gut cleanser and detoxifier.
Okay.
That has it in it.
Okay. I might as well ask you because you're so good at explaining detailed answers. What's the difference between activated carbon and biochar?
The activated charcoal, I don't know exactly how they activate it, so I actually can't answer this question.
Okay. All right.
But it's very similar to biochar. It's just really good at holding on to toxins.
Yes.
And and when you digest, when you like get it through your gut, it also has other things in it that act as a broom. And that charcoal that I have in that product just holds on to toxins, and then you can release it. And yeah, it's very interesting what comes out the other end when we use that blend. I usually use it in combination with some fasting, and then I do choose fasting or water fasting and use this blend to clean out the gut.
So your blend has activated carbon in it that's been ground up or something, has it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Ah.
And some herbs and yeah, all sorts.
So if people wanted to make their own, would you advise that they could use biochar as a substitute and mix it with those herbs, or w would it be better not to risk that?
I don't know. They would need to research that.
Hmm.
And because the one I buy is already activated, I don't know what's the process for human consumption. It will be quite different than, for the soil where you can pee on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, or get it through compost. I wouldn't have a problem to actually drink some of our compost extract, but I know I wouldn't recommend it to others.
Hmm. Yeah, what I do know about activated carbon is that they use a high temperature and steam process to kind of
Yes.
clean it out and to make the surface area even larger than what you'd get with biochar. For me, that's the
Oh,
main difference is that it's more of a lab process and the surface area is generally much higher than what you can make yourself at home, in a Kontiki kiln or something similar. I don't think there's anything else that they actually put into it. It's just a more technical process, I think, that they use.
yeah, 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 I think you're right. I don't know who that it's steam activated, but yeah.
You mentioned one of your products has humates in it. Where do the humates come from? Is that something you can make yourself, or do you have to buy that?
Um, The humans are like ancient forests that have been decomposing for millennia. And I
Uh-huh.
get the humates from Southern humates. And then they have a mine where they extract it out of the ground. So yes, you can't make it, but you can, find it if you dig somewhere where there was an ancient rainforest. And
Okay.
yeah, it's also really stable carbon. And I don't know if it's how it relates to biochar and how similar they are in their function in the soil. But humus is also very stable ancient carbon made from,
Mhm.
old rainforests.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a mine down south.
So that's a New Zealand mine, is it?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's in
Okay.
Southland.
Ah, I see. Yeah. I was actually talking to Nicole Masters at the Underground Festival, and she said that she isn't using biochar because there's a humate mine in the area that she works in the States. And she was saying that they are both long chain carbons. That's how biochar and the humates are very similar. So they're just a long chain carbon molecules in them. So they're not the same, but they're similar and both beneficial to the soil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for me, humates is easy to add in as well. I'm usually limited with the feedstock for biochar. We just never can get enough. We have planted hundreds of trees that we can coppice. And
Mhm.
so in the future, we'll have enough, but right now we just don't. We've been on the property a bit over like 12 years, and the planting of trees wasn't the first priority. The growing of the food was the first priority.
Mm.
And now that we have ventured out into the paddocks and we're planting, like we're putting swales into our paddock because we're really steep.
Yeah.
And on the swale mound, we're putting fodder trees for the cows. We're putting fruit trees as well. And a lot of them we can coppice, and then the cows eat the leaves off, and then the sticks will can turn into biochar. But it's just still not enough for us at the moment. Yeah, just we just keep ticking along, and biochar is so stable in the soil, it just stays there, and we
Yeah.
just add more and more and more.
How
Yeah,
how big is your
it's just
property?
true. We've got 7 hectares, it's about
7
16
hectares.
acres,
Okay.
and half of it is regenerative native bush, and the other half is very steep. So whenever we want to do something, it needs to be terraced, or there needs to be some effort done to it because
Yeah.
it's Banks Peninsula. It's beautiful, amazing view, but it's just not flat.
Always steep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what are the main coppice trees that you have planted?
We have planted poplar and eucalypts
Uh-huh.
that we can mainly coppice. We also have got quite a few willows that are really easy to cut down, and they just grow back. And we've got Tagasaste trees, which are nitrogen fixing. The stock absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And we can prune it really hard 2 times a year. and then they just grow back again, and they grow really bushy, and then stock can eat that. And whenever we let them into a paddock where there's lots of tagasasti, we just go in with our little chainsaw, cut some of the branches off, they eat it, and then we take the branches and turn it into biochar.
Yeah. You must have super healthy animals.
Oh, they are, yeah. Our ram is so fat, you won't believe it. I have to
Yeah.
send you a photo. He looks smashing, yeah.
Cool. And you've just got the sheep for your own consumption, or do you sell some?
Yes, well, we usually end up with too many ewe lambs because we just eat
Hmm.
the wether lambs, and we sell like 4 or 5 ewe lambs every year. And
Okay.
yeah, there's usually a waiting list for people wanting some because it's hard to get organic stock. And they do really well with the system we've created. And they don't need any drenching. And yeah, we've had a couple of times now. Once we bought organic stock from a farm, but they were not looked after very well, and they were just looking really bad if they don't get a treatment. And our stock, they're just used to the environment. They're used to having the garlic and the apple cider vinegar for their drench and nothing else. And yeah, and then they perform really well. They're good browsers too.
Yeah. Which kind of breed are they?
They are Wiltshire sheep. We usually have between 7 and 14 sheep. At the moment, a bit less because we've already sold a ewe and we sold 5 lambs. And so there's just our breeding flock of like 4 ewes and the ram, and some wether lambs that we usually slaughter when they're a bit over a year old.
Okay.
And and we've got the dairy cow and her calf. And at the moment, the calf is 8 months old. So we weaned him when he was 6 months old. And then the dairy cow goes into a paddock first. And the calf and the sheep, they follow into that paddock the next day. So they're rotated through every day. And we use electric fencing for them.
Hmm.
And so the sheep, we've got them used to that. Any ones that didn't perform with the electric fencing, we sold and yeah, or slaughtered.
Hmm.
And now the mob we have at the moment, they don't go through the electric fence. And yeah, the cow gets the first lot, so she can eat as much as she wants. She gets her best bits out because she's still being milked and she's pregnant.
Yeah. Do you guys take help exchanges and woofers?
Yes, we take woofers, and we've got a Japanese woofer at the moment. And she has been just spreading out some tagasasti for the cattle before, and we're also, because we've done quite a big development, so Ka has been mowing around the natives, and she has been gathering all that grass and puts it into the garden as mulch. We just planted our garlic, and so all of that gets mulched now with grass, and then with some carbon, like I think we use some wood chips and straw.
Yeah. And how long do you find that or how long do you really want each helper to stay for? Do you have a
Um,
minimum and a maximum?
yeah, it's usually we want them to stay for minimum a week
Yeah.
and maximum 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
But if we get along really well, they sometimes stay a bit longer. But we usually find we need a bit of a break again, family time, and it's quite, we have to be really organized with work and have everything ready and make sure we cook. And because we
Yeah.
cook everything from scratch, it takes time, and we make all our own bread. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why. I mean, over the summer we have them about for 2 weeks for each month, and then we've got 2 weeks off, and then we've got someone else for 2 weeks, and that
Okay.
usually works really well.
Great. Yeah. And is Kai still working full time or is he part-time working?
He stopped his well, he was working full time when we moved here, and then he went to part time for 3 days a few years ago, and he joined the KoruKai business 2020,
Okay.
almost 5 years ago now. Yeah, so we work together, and he's usually the one who does outside projects and building things. And whenever I need him for KoruKai, he just chips in whenever needed. But our goal is that we've got enough staff that I can manage on my own, and he is outside doing things. Yeah.
Okay.
Then we can faster progress. Like we just got a little digger, and our son is 12 and he loves, he loves doing that. And so he's out with our boy at the moment in the afternoons, and he's going to put in some more swales in the paddock with it, or
Mm.
like they put in some drainage in one of our driveways, and he put up a glass house last year, and yeah, doing things that are really helpful for us. And he's also the guy that makes things efficient. So if we find something is not working easily and it takes us a long time, we give Kai the job, and then he comes up with a better plan.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a really good team going and yeah, great homestead happening.
Yes, yeah, we love it. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about relating to biochar or even homesteading?
I just want to bring to people's awareness how easy things are that you might find they're very difficult or that you can't do it. I think since we moved to New Zealand, it really gave us that drive to try new things and do things that we normally wouldn't have done. And it's the same with biochar. It is just too easy to do. And you can even, like, if you have a burn pile, you can like light it from the top instead of from the bottom, and then you get biochar, and then you just spread it out. And yeah, things are a lot more easier than they seem. And yeah, it's just hope that more people go into worm farming and biochar making, and so that they can, just grow some food on their properties or on their farm. I think a lot more farmers have so much space, and I would like to see a vegetable garden everywhere.
Yeah,
That's, yeah, that's what I would love to
cool.
see.
Yeah, and where do you send your worms to? Do you send them only to South Island or do you also go North Island?
No, they go everywhere, everywhere, North Island, South Island. When we started selling rooms, we put them in this like a perforated bag with the bedding, and I put them in a box and shut the box and left it alone for 2 weeks just to see how they go. And it was really hard for me to not open that actually. But then I actually opened it up and had a look and actually exposed them to a bit of sunshine as well, to a bit of cold and a bit of hot, and they were absolutely fine. So if they arrive within 2 weeks, I can guarantee that they are fine. If they're not left in like in a hot car in the summer. But often in like February, we just don't sell them because the temperatures are too hot and the risk is too high that they end up somewhere in a hot place, and then that would not be good for them. But yeah, so far we have sold about 200 bags in the last 18 months, and only one didn't arrive intact. And that was that guy's fault because he left it in the sun for 3 days.
Oh, poor worms.
And yeah, so far so good. Rural properties, no problem. And yeah, we ship it everywhere.
Great. Well, you're starting the revolution of getting the worms out there, so well done.
Yeah, get them out there.
Cool.
Do that good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the chat today. It's been really interesting and you're doing a lot of awesome stuff. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
You're
And
very
yeah,
welcome.
good luck with with more chit chats. And yeah, hopefully it gets the word out about biochar.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.